Mr. Steven, thank you for speaking to Montenegrin podcast music show Rewinding.
My pleasure.
The main reason why we're speaking and made this interview is your book, Unrequited Infatuations, which I read, and it's fabulous. First, I want to ask you where the idea for the book came from, and also to admit to you that you have a great memory.
Yeah, you wouldn't believe what I forgot. Yeah, well, I just figured, it was just an opportunity because of the quarantine. If it wasn't for the quarantine, I don't think it ever would have happened. So you're home, you got nothing to do. I mean, I actually was pretty busy because I got a record company, so I'm always dealing with. I got like 20 acts that I'm dealing with demos, and I'm fixing demos, and I'm listening to mixes, and the radio network. You always got to keep an eye on that, but it pretty much runs itself. So I was a little bit busy, but I had some time. It's the longest I've ever not traveled, I think, in my whole life. The longest time I was ever in one place. So
yeah,
might as well use it, and figured it was time to take a look back.
And when you look back on the book, I think it's out for a year and a half or 2 years. As you mentioned, what you have forgot to write about?
What did I learn?
What you forgot to mention in the book, and it's important to you.
Oh, I got most of the important things in there,
Yeah.
But I wish it made me really wish I had kept the diary, back, especially when I left the band. That whole thing was quite an adventure. Getting into politics and all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's almost like two books. The first half of the book is a local kid, makes it to the top of rock and roll, which is a great book by itself, But then when I leave the band, I think the themes become a bit bigger and a bit more broader in terms of the audience, who might be interested.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a musician really to go through some of the same things I went through, which is, getting to the point in your life when things don't work out. Maybe your first dream does not work out, your first plan. And now you have a whole journey of discovery, learning about yourself, seeking your own identity and seeking a purpose in the world, seeking enlightenment and the things that are, a bit more bigger themes than just a rock and roll story,
Yeah.
So it's like almost like two different books.
Yeah. In the beginning of the book, you're talking about passion for music and your feelings towards to bands like Beatles and the Rolling Stones. Kids today, if they read your book, do you think that they could feel the same way listening to today's music?
No, of course not. Part of what I wanted to do was to relive for an audience that was not there in the 60s, to relive that Renaissance period, and I call it a Renaissance very deliberately. It was an absolute Renaissance period. So it's not fair to compare what's going on today with just like it's not fair to compare some modern composer with
Yeah.
Beethoven or Bach or, Tchaikovsky. I mean, those things only happen every couple of hundred years.
Mm.
And I happened to grow up right in the middle of it. So those artists, the same artists that I grew up with, will be the same artists that young people will go back to and learn from.
Mm.
The 50s, 60s, and 70s, the birth of rock in the 50s,
Yeah.
the peak of the Renaissance artistically in the 60s, and then the use of that knowledge and the use of that art form in the 70s, when it would become a business.
Mm.
Those 3 decades will be studied for hundreds of years to come, I believe.
Yeah.
So it's important to give a little bit of what I remembered, what I remembered from it.
Yeah.
If you really remember the 60s, you probably weren't there,
Yeah. But it's a great thing in your book. Also, you give the instructions step by step for younger bands what to expect when they're starting to play and developing into some bigger bands. That's why I ask you. We have passion on another side, and on the different side is music business. Do you think that music business killed the rock and roll and that passion?
Well, we had a good run, we had a good 30-year run of the rock era.
Mhm.
I clocked the rock era from 1965 or so to like a Rolling Stone. Bob Dylan's Like a Rolling
Yeah.
Stone until Kurt Cobain's death in '94. So it was almost exactly 30 years of a rock era, and now we've gone back to a pop era,
Yeah.
which is where it began in the 50s and early 60s. So rock music is no longer part of the mainstream industry.
Mhm.
We're still the biggest thing live,
Yeah.
which is fortunate. We're lucky about that. But there hasn't been a rock song in the top 10, of pop
Yeah.
singles since decades. I don't
Mm.
know the last one. I can't remember. So it's no longer sort of part of the mainstream, but we've gone back to being a cult,
Yeah.
just like we were in the 50s when it started, and maybe that's where we belong. To be honest.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that rock era, when looked back in history, will be looked at as a blip on the radar screen. It'll be an anomaly. It'll be a weird divergence from what was normal. So I've spent the last 20, 25 years making sure that that rock era remains alive, remains accessible to future generations, because I feel that it's extraordinarily important and will forever be motivational, forever be inspirational. So that's why I started my radio network. That's why I started my record company. That's why I started my school curriculum, to actually get that Renaissance, those Renaissance years into the school curriculum. And we're using that way. So I feel it's that important that it should be preserved and remain accessible.
Yeah, I think everyone knows you from the one of the great rock and roll bands of all time, E Street Bands, and that's why I want to ask you. We thought from Europe that rock and roll would always be mainstream culture in America. What's changed that rock and roll doesn't have that place anymore in America?
Well, a couple of different things. The business was part of it. It became a bigger and bigger business, really peaking in the 80s. And then companies started merging, the corporation, the corporate consciousness started to overwhelm the artistic consciousness, so the business grew and grew to the point where bigger corporations started buying it. And when that happens, now you have the whole Wall Street nightmare.
Yeah.
Now you have to be, satisfy your investors, on a quarterly basis, every financial quarter, you have to increase by 5% or whatever it is, and you increase your profits, and so that does not make for a good. I got hiccups all of a sudden. That does not make for a very oh my goodness, fertile ground. Hang on 1 second. Hold on. I don't know. Oh my God, it's still there. So we'll see. Forgive me for
no problem. Yeah, it's okay.
I don't know where this came from. So that was that. I think that was. Oh my God, I can't even talk. That was part of the problem. Because oh geez, art is not that consistent. It has great highs and great lows. I'll be back. You gotta be fucking kidding me. I don't know.
Yeah.
Well, we'll try it. We may have to reschedule this. But let's keep trying anyway.
Yeah. So I want to ask you, you said in the book that politics in rock and roll started with Bob Dylan. Also, people know how you're politically involved in the world. What do you think, should music today be politically aware and active?
Yeah. Well, I think we have a responsibility as citizens to express our thoughts all the time. And these days, I think the mass media, the social media, has in some ways replaced the things that are hidden. Things aren't so hidden anymore as they were in the 80s, which is why I was so political back then. We had to shine a light on things that were hidden in the darkness, and these days things are a little bit more in the open, but we still have a big problem. I can't believe I got the hiccups. I've never had hiccups during an interview before.
It's a great. I immediately go on the Lillehammer scenes, which is very funny.
How's your time today?
It's great. We can do later.
Can I call you back? Can I call you back in an hour?
Yeah, it's okay. Of course.
No joke. It's no joke.
Yeah.
So.
Maybe if you hear some medicine that cause it.
Yeah, it's one of the great mysteries of science and of medicine. Nobody really understands it. So anyway, I cured it with apple cider vinegar. You ever you know that? You know what that is?
Yeah.
So hopefully I'm okay. So let's go.
Okay. Yeah. So you talk in your book about music and politics. You said that Bob Dylan started in music. How you get involved into the politics? And tell me more about Sun City project. How you came up to an idea for South Africa?
Well, I talk about this in great detail, obviously, in the book, but I was traveling in Europe on the river tour, and a kid came up to me and asked me why we're putting missiles in his country, you know,
Yeah.
in Germany. Sorry, in Germany.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I didn't understand what he was talking about, but I gradually understood that when you go overseas, when you leave the country, people start looking at you differently. You know, they don't see you as a guitar player or
Yeah.
a Republican or a Democrat. You become an American, and as an American citizen, we're supposed to be a democracy.
Mm.
You know, we're not exactly a democracy, but we're close enough, I guess. And so therefore you have some obligations and responsibilities as an American, which I never thought about in my whole life. So it was a bit of a revelation for me, and I started to do some research about our foreign policy since World War II. And I learned what I learned was quite shocking to me. You know, I grew up with a very conservative father.
Yeah.
And that generation, you know, didn't question the government ever.
Mm.
And so I was shocked when we went to find out that we were not the heroes of democracy around the world, like I thought we were. Like, you know, and so I decided that when I started my solo records, my identity would be, you know, I felt you needed to have a unique identity,
Yeah.
because that's what I grew up with in the 60s. Everybody had a very unique identity. So I thought, well, my identity will be the political guy. You know, nobody's doing it full time. You know, of course there would be a song here or there,
Yeah.
but nobody was doing it thematically on every album, every song, all the time. So I decided that that would be my thing, and that's what I did for 5 albums in the 80s.
Yeah, but that's interesting how other musicians and people who are involved in politics look differently about your work. It's interesting for me when I read when you called Frank Zappa, how he reacted on your call for the cause. He is a guy who is very much into the politics and criticizing the U.S. government.
Yeah, Frank was a very cynical man, and he was the first guy I called for the Sun City project, and it was not a good phone call.
Yeah.
You know, he basically immediately accused me of stealing money. You know, why should I participate when you're just going to steal them? You're just going to steal the money. I never met him, never, you know,
Yeah.
never had, you know, and but you know, it was a little bit depressing because I was a big fan of him, and I still am. You know, I've learned to separate the artist from the art. You know, I've learned that there's two different things, and there's too much important art to cancel if you don't like the artist. You know, if you have a problem with the artist, because most artists are assholes. Okay, you know, believe me, I know, because I am one. And you know, so if you're gonna start disregarding the art from all of the artists who are assholes, we're not going to have any art. You know what I mean? And art is too important. So you know, I mean, you know, Mozart was an asshole. You know, Beethoven was an asshole. I mean, you know, I mean, Picasso was an asshole. You know, I mean, you go through the whole list, right? You know, now these days, you know, people got problems with Michael Jackson, they got problems with Eric Clapton, they got problems with Van Morrison. You know, what are you gonna do? You know, you're gonna just throw away your entire record collection. You know, you know, so I just feel it's very important, if you can do it, to separate the art from the artist, you know?
Yeah, not everyone the same, but it's a great story about Miles Davis and how he reacted on your call.
Yeah, that was a miracle, you know, to have him come in. You know, he never did anything like that. And it was just kind of part of the overall, you know, destiny or whatever you want to call it. There was something about that project that was meant to happen.
Yeah.
You know, many strange things combined to make that thing a success, and such a complete success. You know, I mean, when a record can help bring a government down,
yeah,
you know, that's a very unique situation.
Yeah.
It'll never happen again. It'll only happen once in history, and it'll probably never happen again. So you know, and Miles coming in, because he happened to be using the same sound man that I had used on a tour or two. Just by luck, I don't think it was his constant sound man. You know, I don't think it was his, you know, his regular sound man. He's happened to be the one guy that we had in common, and I got the message to him, and he had the balls to give the message to Miles, because Miles, tough guy, a really tough guy, you know. And man, we just happened to hit the right issue at the right time. You know, it was on his mind, and man, he came in and was amazing, wonderful. You know?
Yeah, but do you think we saw this global war that became this year in Ukraine? Do you think that rock and roll needs to send messages about politics still? And do we have a rock and roll artists who speak about that openly?
Yeah, it's different now. You know, it's different now. We could not have done Sun City now. You know, and Ukraine, the subject makes me crazy. I got to tell you the truth. Okay? I mean, it makes me crazy.
This is like Cold War live.
Like what? Sorry?
Cold War live.
Oh, yeah. Well,
sort of.
Yeah, in a way, but to me, you know, lately, you know, Putin's been talking about, you know, again, using nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
And all of the journalists on TV now are saying, well, we don't care what he's saying. We're not going to be subjected to nuclear blackmail. You know, they're saying this now. I'm like, well, that's what he did in the first place.
Yeah.
You know, it's a complete bluff, a complete con. And 30 countries of NATO, all 30 of us, watched the country get massacred because of this fuck, you know, this con man, you know, saying I'm going to destroy the world with nuclear weapons.
Yeah.
Bullshit. It was bullshit. All right. He was conning everybody, and everybody bought it. But now he says it again. And oh no, we're not gonna. You're not gonna get away with that, Mr. Putin, with this nuclear blackmail. Well, that's exactly how he got into Ukraine in the first place.
Yeah,
it was nuclear blackmail. You know, only it was completely phony. I mean, you've seen his boat. You know, his $750 million yacht.
Yeah.
You know, have you seen his $100 million mansions everywhere? I mean, this guy's not going to commit suicide. I don't think. You know. Anyway. It was one of the most embarrassing moments, I think, in history. I felt embarrassed to be an American. I felt embarrassed to be part of NATO. I was appalled, absolutely appalled, that we just sat there like a reality show, watching a country get destroyed every single day, 24/7 on TV. You know, like it was some new reality show. You know, come watch the Ukrainians, you know, get massacred. I'm like, my God, you know, what's the matter with us? What has happened to us?
Yeah.
You know, we've just become one big nation of pussies, you know, backing down, you know, cowards to these fascists, you know, and look at the fascism popping up everywhere now.
Yeah.
everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's the reason. The reason why the fascists are starting to take over the world is because there's no good, tough guys.
Yeah.
There's no tough, good guys.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah.
are the tough, good guys to stand up to these motherfuckers, you know, to
Yeah.
stand up to these guys and say, you know, no, you're not getting away with this, you know? I mean, you know, we have a guy in my country who tried to overthrow the government, and he's playing golf every day. You know, what do you think? What does the world think about that?
Yeah.
They think we're cowards and pussies. That's what they think, and that's what Putin thinks.
Yeah.
And that's why Putin invaded Ukraine in the first place, because he sees Donald Trump playing golf every day.
All right. Yeah.
Okay? You know, you think Russia would be so kind as to somebody trying to overthrow the government? You know, I mean, so they're looking at us and laughing at our weakness. And it's the same thing in Britain with the stupid
Yeah.
the Brexit nightmare.
Brexit, yeah.
A complete disaster. You know, another con job. It's a con. They lied to everybody. They manipulate the public. They lie to the public. The public are fucking stupid. Okay, and they accept these lies. And now, now they realize what a you know, that they were lying along. I mean, Boris Johnson, you know, this guy's made an entire living lying. He's lied every single minute of his life. Okay, and all you have to do is go back and look at Boris Johnson's history. You know, every job he's ever had, he was lying, and they proved it. They proved it after he was fired. Yeah, you know. Yeah, that he was lying. You know, he was always a liar. You know. Right. I mean, you know, and now we have, you know, Hungary, we have Poland, we have, you know, I mean, Italy just went, you know. Yeah. You know, I mean, Sweden, for Christ's sake, Sweden. Right. Sweden. Right. And Finland. Right. Finland. There's a big party rising in Norway. Even Germany itself. Right. You know. Right. What? It seems that war. Yeah, it seems that war is endless through the generations. We're not teaching history in school. We need to teach civics, and we need to teach history. I mean, what do we have to do in Italy? Leave Mussolini hanging in the square? Yeah. maybe that's what I should have done, huh? Yeah. Left him hanging there upside down. Because maybe then people would go walk by, you know, and say, yeah, maybe that's a bad idea, that Mussolini thing, you know? Right. I mean, the woman prime minister of Italy is in Mussolini's party. You understand? It's the same party with a different name. Yeah, you know? Yeah, same ideology. What the fuck? It's insane, you know? So we're going backwards for the first time in my lifetime. You know, we've always had, you know, difficulty here and there, you know, bumps in the road, you know, like little bumps, like, you know, Vietnam or whatever. But mostly it's been a slow rise in progress towards a more progressive world up until Trump, you know, up until the last 5, 6, 7 years. Now suddenly we're not taking the walls down, we're putting walls up. You know, we're not unifying people. We're dividing people. You know, and this is a terrible turn for history. But it's recent. It's recent. Up until recently, we were making our way towards progress. You know. Yeah. It's a kind of paradox. It's kind of paradox. We send people travel to the Mars and to the moon commercially, and we have war going on where people getting killed every day. It's a sort of paradox in the world we live in. True. Yeah. And when we speak about this subject, I gotta ask you, you're talking a lot about television and how you grew up watching good pop culture programs and live shows. Today, media has a strong role in this whole thing that's going on politically. And how do you think that TV especially changed the world and how we see the world today? Well, it's not just TV, it's social media that's causing the problem. And I think we're going to have to face a very difficult choice very soon, very soon. I'm not sure we can have freedom of speech the way we have been trying to have it in a social media world, you know, and by that I mean we're going to have to start facing the facts that lies travel faster than the truth. You know,
Right.
and this was even on TV, you know, while we have some problems on TV, which is the entire Murdoch empire, Murdoch, which is really a fascist empire, you know, that alone I would question in terms of freedom of speech. You know? I personally think Fox News in America are criminals, are literally criminals. That should be held accountable for lying about COVID. I mean, they caused millions of people, you know, hundreds of thousands of people to die. You know, they killed hundreds of thousands of people. They should be accountable for that. You know, and they continue now. You know, they show Russia shows Fox News. You know, they're proud of the connection. They're Russian asset, basically. So, you know, they're guilty of treason. They're guilty of misleading people in terms of science and medicine and so many other things that I think there's a case legally, even now with our laws as liberal as they are. I think there's probably a case to be made against Fox News and all of these other outlets on TV. But the social media is even more scary because, like I say, if the lies travel faster than the truth, we're starting to have a problem with the truth catching up. And it's going to be a difficult challenge, I think, to maintain, because freedom of speech does have limitations. You know, you know, the old cliche, you know, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater. Right? You know, you've heard that expression, you know, but Fox News is crying fire in a crowded theater every single hour.
It's a bomb, not fire.
You know, and social media, forget it. You know, all of these QAnon insanity, you know, going around and spreading, and the truth can't keep up. You know, it can't keep up. Especially these days with everybody in the world, this is disappointed with their lives. Okay, everybody is disappointed. The basic economic system isn't working. Okay, the basic orthodox capitalism, you know, is not quite working. Okay, and so everyone is working twice as hard now for the same money. Okay, they're not feeling like they're gaining anything. They're not gaining any ability to have leisure time or, you know, to spend time with their family. They're working twice as hard. The wife is working twice as hard. You know, when I grew up in the suburbs, mothers didn't even work. In the middle class suburbs, only the father worked. The mother was home with the kids. You know. And you know, but now everybody's working around the clock. They can't get ahead. They can barely pay their bills. You know, most of the credit card debt in America does not go for luxury items. It goes to pay for food.
Basic needs.
You know? Pay the rent. You know, that's how the credit cards are now. The credit is getting bigger and bigger because they're just for basic needs. Well, something's wrong with a system like that.
But where is,
you know, I mean,
where is rebellion against it? Where is rebellion through music and art?
Where is it reflected, you mean?
Rebellion against that.
I mean, I'm sorry. I digressed from your original question. I mean, what can we do? You know, I mean, it's hard to imagine a record, or, you know, I mean, we can try and we continue to try, but if there's going to be some kind of movement, it's going to be Greta Thunberg, you know, in the environment. You know what I mean? Something that's a little bit more than a record these days. It seems like it requires more than just you know, music. And I mean, Ukraine, we could have, you know, rock and roll could not do anything about Ukraine, you know? You know, I think we all should have, I think everybody in every single of the 30 NATO countries, I guess we're 32 now, with Finland and Sweden, but you know, everybody in every country, if we had banded together and said, what the fuck are we doing, staying out of this war? You know, we need to stop him now. We should have stopped Putin in Crimea 10 years ago. That was a mistake. That was a mistake right there. You know, first of all, we should have had Ukraine in NATO as soon as they got rid of the puppet government, which was what, 13 years ago? So, right? They had a Russian puppet government for a while.
Right.
You know, got rid of them. As soon as they got rid of that puppet government, we should have put them in NATO. And right now, I would put all of the ex-Soviet countries, what is there, 10 or 12 of them, I would put them all in NATO right now. And say, fuck you, Putin. What are you going to do? You know, with you and your nuclear weapons. You know, we got nuclear weapons too. You know what I mean? How does he become a tough guy? You know? You know, you got nuclear weapons, so do we. Guess what? We can't use them, you asshole. We can't use them because that's the end of the fucking world. You understand? So fight like a man. Fight like a man. You know, you're a tough guy. Fight like a man. You know, Mr. No shirt. You know, on the horse. You're a tough guy. Okay, let's fight like men. Fight like men. Conventional weapons.
It's interesting for me that decades are passing and hippie movement is still relevant. Even I think it will be today the great movement who will do changes in the world.
Yes, I mean the ideals of the hippie, you know, the hippie ideals, are the progressive ideals, right? You know, everyone is equal. You know, there's no such thing as prejudice against black people or immigrants or gay people, the LGBTQ, whatever it is. You know, all of that. You know, there's no need for prejudice against anybody. You know. The hippie thing was very much tied to the American Indian philosophy of respecting the earth, you know, returning to the earth, you know, farming, organic farming, the whole concept of organic farming. You know, a friend of mine has an organic farm. He wanted to have he bought a farm and he wanted to make it an organic farm. You know, it took him 5 years. It takes 5 years to get the poison out of the ground.
Right.
And 5 years to take the poison out of the ground if you want to have an organic farm in America, which means everybody's eating poison food. Right. Everybody's drinking poison water, and there's poison in the air all the time. You know what I mean? And we just accept this.
It's easier not to thinking about that.
Yeah, but anyway, that was the hippie philosophy. You know, return to nature. You know, respect nature, like the American Indian. You know, all indigenous people everywhere. You know, they respect the earth. They have a relationship with the earth. You know, and all of that. You know, equality. You know, democracy, freedom. All of that is a hippie philosophy, and it still applies today. You know,
I need to ask you just a few questions. I want to ask you about 70s. You said that was the worst time to record. Why is that? And what was the decade for you back then?
The best decade?
Yeah.
The best decade to record we missed, which was the 60s. Even the 50s. I mean, you compare a record to a 50s record. You know, listen to put a modern record on and next to Jailhouse Rock, you know, by Elvis Presley, you know. I mean, the 50s record blows everything away. And the 60s also. You know, by the 70s, it had become a business. It wasn't really a business until the 70s. And then, you know, the corporate takeover began, and
also you said 90s was a lost decade.
Oh, that's a different story. Yeah, that's different.
Yeah.
That was for me. 90s
Yeah,
was a
yeah.
lost decade. Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost that one. But anyway, the 70s. For a while, the engineers took over and they wanted everything to be separate so they could control. Multi-track recording became normal. It went
Right.
from 2 tracks to 4 tracks to 8 tracks to 24 tracks to 48 tracks. Okay. And so the engineers wanted complete control of every sound on the record, which is not what rock and roll wants. It's not what rock and roll likes. Rock and roll is you walk into a room and you see a band playing and it's one big mono sound. All right. That's rock and roll. All right.
Yeah,
It'll never be improved upon. Okay. The problems began with stereo. Okay.
Yeah.
Stereo was the beginning of the problem. But the 70s was the epitome, the zenith of technology working against the art, against the art form.
Yeah.
By the 80s it kind of straightened out and whatever. But the 70s was a difficult time.
Right. And the end of the lost 90s gave us The Sopranos, one of the best TV shows according to Internet Movie Database. You made a legend with that series. How you get into the acting and how you get into The Sopranos?
Yeah, I explained. It's a very again, it's one of those unlikely stories. It's a crazy story. I just happened to be the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was a ceremony. It was never televised, and here it was televised. I happened to be inducting a group called the Rascals into the Hall of Fame. And I did it like a little bit of a comical kind of, introduction. And David Chase, the creator of Sopranos, to be watching. He happened to be watching on TV. So he thought I was funny. And he's been a fan. I mean, he was a fan. He had E Street Band records, but he also had my solo records.
Just this one time.
And, he was looking for unusual faces for his new show. And so I was going to be one of the unusual faces.
Yeah.
And he called me. So, yeah.
And the rest is the history. I think everyone saw that series. But the people who are watching Lilyhammer also saw you in a different light, and that is the first Netflix TV series that gone well. How you made that series?
Yeah, we were lucky. We were the first Netflix series. I say lucky, but it was a little bit unlucky because nobody knew what Netflix was.
Yeah.
I had to go explain to people what Netflix was. So we didn't get a big audience because Netflix didn't have a big audience. We were the first show.
Yeah.
Now people are discovering it. People discovered it during the quarantine. I've been getting a lot of tweets. And people discovering Lilyhammer every day now.
Yeah.
But it was something I'm very proud of because almost every single successful show in Europe, and the whole thing was filmed in Norway. So I was the only American, in the cast. But what happens in any European success is it gets remade for America. You know what I mean? They use the basic idea of the show, and then they recast it and they reshoot it. It's a whole, it's the same show, but it's different for America.
Yeah.
And this was the first time in history a successful European show was not remade. They actually showed the original broadcast in America. You know? So I was very proud that Ted Sarandos and Netflix, it was a very ballsy move, because there's a lot of it is subtitled, because they're mostly speaking Norwegian.
Yeah.
for me. So it was a ballsy move for a first show.
Right.
First show, your business is depending on idea of creating content. And the first show you're going to show, it has subtitles in America. Very ballsy move, because America doesn't like subtitles. It's a small cult of people that obviously enjoy European movies in their true form, but it's a mainstream thing. It's not a typical thing. So to have a show with subtitles, and it was an experiment, which really worked, because me and the two creators of the show, and Bjornstad and Eilif Skodfin, we spent a long time trying to figure out how much English can we do. A premise will be my character understands Norwegian but doesn't speak it. So we have some English in the show, hoping that would be enough for America. And it was. The Americans that I've talked to, they say the subtitles just disappear after a while. It becomes natural because you're in Norway, so naturally they're speaking Norwegian. But there's enough English to keep everybody interested, just to keep people, people connected to the show. So it worked out very well.
We could talk for hours about your relation with Bruce and all that you've done in career, but we will let it to readers to have a book and read everything about that career. For the end, I just want to ask you, we talked about Sopranos and success of the TV series. You are in world the most successful rock and roll band of all times. When you turn your look back, you've done great things in two different spheres of art. How you feel about that road and all this that you've done?
Well, I think there's several things that I'm very proud of, that I think will live beyond me. I certainly those records, the E Street Band records we did, certainly Sopranos, Lilyhammer. But I think more importantly, I think the things that will live beyond me is my school curriculum, Teach Rock, teachrock.org, which is bringing music history to schools. And it's free for teachers worldwide. They can use all of the video that we licensed, all of the music we licensed. It's free for teachers. And that, I think, is going to live beyond me. I think my radio formats will live beyond me. I've created two formats for radio. One is the Underground Garage format, which is rock. And one is called Outlaw Country, which is for country music. And I think they will also live beyond me. So there's just a couple of things I'm proud of that I've done, and aside from having the two best jobs in the world, which is actor and rock star,
Right.
Good job to have. Aside from the jobs themselves, which are mostly fun and occasionally important. The important stuff for me is making sure that the art lives on, making sure that the Renaissance of the 50s and 60s and 70s is accessible to future generations, which is what my radio format does. It's what my school curriculum does. I also think we're changing the very nature of education by including art, by integrating art into the process, into the very process, not art as an after-school special, thing. Integrating art into mathematics, into science, into engineering, this is into technology. And when you integrate art into the technologies, it creates a different way of learning for kids. You know, and a lot of kids are not that comfortable with the precision required from science and technology and math.
Yeah.
Especially when they're young. You know, so the artistic, the inclusion of an artistic sensibility makes kids relax a little bit. You know, we try to go to their sensibility rather than dragging them to our own. You know,
right.
And you know, my most important sort of philosophy is we teach kids how to think, not what to think.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that I think is a very important philosophy for the future, because the way information is going to be delivered is going to continue to change, and the input is going to be overwhelming. It's already overwhelming.
Yeah.
We already have technology that is beyond our brains.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
And that's why this younger generation are very, very different. I think their brains are different than ours. You know, the technology is actually changing the physical makeup of their brain. So it's not so much the details of how they're getting information, but it's more important that they were able to connect the dots between things and realize, you know, let them think for themselves, learn to think for themselves, rather than what's going on now in the world, which is we're all turning into sheep. You know, we're following fascists. You know, you know, we need the war against ignorance, which teachers are fighting, is just as important as the war against crime and the war against the war the military type wars. You know. Yes, the military are important to defend us. Yes, the police are important to defend us, but teachers are just as important to defend us. You know, to defend us against the ignorance, which is running rampant. We have 49% of my country, half, voted for Donald Trump. Okay, you understand? This buffoon, this mindless, ridiculous, anti-American, you know, anti-equality, anti-democracy buffoon. All right, as fool. Half of my country voted for him. You understand how horrifying that is? You know. And now we see it. We see it in Italy. We see it in Hungary. We see it everywhere.
We hope it will be better.
Brazil. Oh, Maron. You know. I mean, that guy's going to destroy the rainforest. He's going to destroy the rainforest. If it was up to him, you know, he would destroy the entire rainforest. Guess what? The planet needs it. It needs it. You know, we need it more than ever now.
Right, Mr. Steven. Thank you. It's been a privilege. I wish you good health and all best to you and your family. Greetings from Montenegro.
Thank you, my friend. Same to you. Good talking to you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
All right, bye-bye.
Everybody say,